not giving up on Bill Skarsgård. All right, I'm gonna be the one to say it right now. I'm not counting that man out. The bar was already set too high for him, and he still tried to overcome. He tried to jump over that hurdle, and he tripped a couple times.
That motherfucker tripped and fell to his fucking face like 20 feet deep.
We might as well just get this. We might as well just get this one out.
Might as well.
Yeah, because I already know you got some. I already know you got some. I already know you got some good criticisms for this.
Yeah. Where do I even start?
Real quick before we start, because like, is this going to show up on the YouTube video like this? Like how
I'm actually watching it on my laptop, and we're both showing up.
Okay, all right. Say no more, bro.
So I don't even know where to start. Okay, so I made
everywhere.
I made so last night I went to go see it at 10:15. I went and I was like, okay. And once that title card opened up with him like in blood and coming out of the blood, and then like the crow being spelt out in like old English, I was like, what in 007 bullshit is this? After that, I knew this movie was on some bullshit, bro. I knew this movie was on some bullshit.
You was waiting for Madonna to start singing "Die Another Day" and shit.
Yeah, exactly. This movie.
Yeah, I did not like that introduction at all.
This movie was made for people who think pink is the new black. This movie is made for people who like Post Malone, Taylor Swift, Ice Spice, and Drake, and consider Olivia Rodrigo emo and trade heavy metal music for EDM and pop. Get the fuck out! Like, nah, man, get the fuck up out of here with that bullshit, man. Like, this is what people think emo is, bro. Like, is that what you think emo is? What? And also I made a mistake on my initial review because I had criticized the kid early on in the movie. I had thought that was Eric's son. I didn't put it together that it was Eric himself that saved the horse.
Yeah, I didn't understand that bullshit at all. I didn't like that part either.
Thank you. I'm not the only one.
I was watching Double Toasted, and somebody that was either like observing their episode, like sitting on the couch in the back, or somebody that was in their comment section while they were streaming. I think they said that was from the comics with the horse and shit like that. But I don't, whether it was from the comics or not, it was just I didn't get it because it never really benefited the rest of the movie. So I didn't understand that shit at all.
And it's interesting too because Draco said, Draco May, shout out to Draco Mays. He shouted out my comments like, yeah, I took it more as if like it was to show that he was a good person at heart, that he saved the horse. And I was thinking, well, if that is the case, nothing in this movie showed that he was a good person at heart. Nothing. Nothing showed that he was a good person. There was nothing about him that screamed he was a good person. Look, man, I have like personal hangups because of my past with drug addicts and addicts and stuff like that. So a lot of that stuff I have like real big personal hangups of. And so I don't have any sympathy for that. And so I think that's part of my big criticism of it. And I look at Eric and Shelly and I'm just like, man, these motherfuckers are just toxic for each other. And you expect me to believe they're in love with each other? That relationship was much more transactional than love, dude. And the minute he questions her, we see what happens to him. That's not pure love. That is not love. That is not deep love.
Eric and Shelly in this movie, that was probably one of my biggest issues with the movie. And I had said this. I said this in my spoiler review. I said this in my video review. I said that, like, you're going to compare it to the original no matter what. Like, it was no getting around it. As much as I tried, I'm like, okay, if y'all are going to keep trying to, like, recreate scenes from the first one, I do have to compare it to the original. But one of the things I said was, you spend less time with Eric and Shelly in the first movie, and you care about them way more. Mm-hmm. because it seemed way more natural. It seemed way more sympathetic. I can appreciate the fact that we spent like 35, 40 minutes with Eric and Shelley. Like, they were trying to establish what they were and all of that. I can appreciate that, but I didn't give a fuck about their love and all of that shit. I didn't feel none of it. Like, I did not feel Eric and Shelley were like, I'm like, oh my God, man, they can't, like, I can see why they can't live without each other. It's just like, no. Especially when you find, like, the moment she told him, like, yo, I've done things, and if I tell you, you'll leave me, I was like, I might, but just be honest. Like, tell me what you did, so I know how to move forward, and I can move accordingly after this shit. And then you find out it wasn't her fault, but yeah, I just didn't really buy into their whole passionate love affair that they had with each other. It was just pretty. It was in comparison to the first one. It's just not there. But then I watched something like God damn, you know what's crazy? I didn't even say this in the review, man, and I got a lot of unpopular opinions about this shit. And when I compare it to the other movies, man, low key, this might be the most or the least interesting loss. Like, it was hard to watch them get murdered. It was a double murder. That shit was rough for me to watch. But even the Crow Wicked Prayer, and I'm going to lose a lot of people with what I'm about to fucking say here. The Crow Wicked Prayer is straight up ass trash truck juice for sure. But you almost kind of buy Edward Furlong and Emmanuel Trickery wanting to just up and get married and run away together. You almost buy that shit. Her dad and her brother hate Jimmy Cuervo, that was his name in the movie. They hate him. She doesn't give a fuck, and you know he got a dusty ass suit on, and you kind of buy that they want to get married and leave this dusty ass town. But this movie, that was like Eric and Shelley was one of the biggest fucking problems in it, because it just didn't work.
It's funny too because and I actually did another video that I didn't upload, but I was like, these writers didn't understand what love is, man. Love is not something you see. Love is something that you feel. And I like you, I felt nothing for these characters. I didn't root for them. I didn't care about them. I didn't even like get emotional when she came back. I'm like, dude. I'm like, this is supposed to be like an emotional moment, and I don't give a fuck.
Now, well, I'll say I didn't get emotional when she came back. I got emotional when I knew what he was about to do. When he was like, "Yo, this is where I'm gonna stay at. You are going back," type of shit. And when they showed him like checked out, I was like, damn, Eric, like you could. It wasn't a deal we could have struck for you to come back to. But yeah, when she came back, like I remember in the original, when Shelley comes back to Eric at the end of the movie, and she's basically completely freeballing under that nightgown. Because if you look close enough, Shelley ain't got no drawers on under that goddamn nightgown. She don't have nothing on, and she's walking in slow mo. That director knew what he was doing, and people can't say nothing about me saying something about it because Alex Proyas. Go take it up with Alex Proyas, man. Mm-hmm. But she's walking towards him, and it's a sweet scene because he's pretty much given up. I guess he feels like he's done. He's put the wrong things right. He'll never see her again. And he's like leaning on her tombstone, shivering. And then she comes and she just places like her hand on his head and she kisses him. And then they both kind of go back into the ground. Eric and Shelley was just one of the main things here that they just dropped the ball with for me. But yeah, I did not hate this movie. I did not. The hate that this movie has been getting overall, I do feel like a lot of people, like, they hold the original to such a high standard. Like, this movie didn't stand a chance, yo. This movie had the same thing going for it that City of Angels had. And I just watched City of Angels, and I said, this movie and the new reboot never stood a chance. The moment it was announced, nobody wants to see it. People already hate it. It has some shit going for it, though. Like, it has some things going for it. But Eric and Shelley and the villains, especially Danny Houston, awful. Terrible.
Yeah,
I didn't like the villain.
You know, it's funny because I make that case about the Child's Play remake. I make that same case about that. You know, and I can see your point here, but as much as I love the original movie, like I can remove myself and try to be objective. Because I actually think City of Angels is actually a half decent movie, and I think there's a
Ooh.
decent movie in there, and there's a cut that we should watch. Because if you really look at it, they took a lot of inspiration from City of Angels, especially with the Danny Houston character. I felt like because Richard Brooks is the main villain in City of Angels, and he kind of has some similar qualities to Danny Houston in terms of something that's supernatural.
Yeah,
And
they both sucked. That's the I could not stand throughout my whole commentary. I just could not stand. Is that his name, Richard Brooks?
yeah, Richard Brooks.
It's like it's almost like they knew Michael Wincott. They had a villain that had a really distinctive voice. So it's almost like they had Richard Brooks go out of his way to keep talking like this every scene. I'm like, are you a fucking cartoon character? Or are you an intimidating supernatural villain? I just, his voice was just like, he's like, what's this curve? A beauty mark? Like when he's talking about the tattoo that Iggy Pop had on his chest. And I'm like, yo, like pipe down and be intimidating, bitch. Like, what's wrong with you? I did not like, and City of Angels held up so well this time around, man. I love that fucking movie way more than I ever did. And I don't think this new one's better than City of Angels. City of Angels has got a way better look. It's got way more memorable moments. But this new one's better. It's better than Salvation.
And also our lead and like his motivation is actually much more real. Like there's something real behind it. There's nothing real behind Eric's motivation in the new remake. Like someone in my comments said, Eric just threw away his life for some chick that he just met on a whim. Like, what the fuck was he thinking? Like, that's an actual comment in my video. I'm like, you're right, but I'm like, dude, it's just because you have sex with someone doesn't mean you love someone. You know what I mean? And again, when you question someone and you doubt them, your love in general is in doubt. That
it almost fucked him up. The moment he had a doubt about her, it almost fucked him up. And when he was already undead, and it was just the dude told him, what's his name, Kronos, was like, yo, I told you the moment that you don't love or whatever he said. He was Captain Exposition. He's another one that he was okay.
Oh my god!
But he was just there wasn't. I like that he gave realistic responses. Where Eric's just like, yo, can I like? He's like, I got shot. Like, can I die? He's like, yo, your body can't die, but you gonna feel this pain. Like he was Captain Exposition, but there wasn't really nothing to. It wasn't really nothing to him. They didn't really explain him too much. Like, I don't know where he came from or anything. He was a spirit guy.
And so in the original movie, Michael Berryman was actually supposed to play that character. And he was titled the Space Cowboy. And he was actually supposed to be walking Eric Draven through the steps and telling him what is going on and explaining life after death and why he is doing what he's doing. He was supposed to be his eyes and ears, but because they didn't film those scenes, there's one scene they filmed that you can find online with Michael Berryman and Brandon Lee online.
Was Michael Berryman that's Michael Berryman from The Hills Have Eyes?
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah. I didn't even know this till I saw his interview at the Sinister Creature Con. He was talking about. I was like, "What the fuck?" I went and researched it. And yeah, he was supposed to be an integral part of that movie.
Oh shit, yo, you right.
So that's who Cronus was supposed to be. That's who he was supposed to be. And now, whether or not that character would have fit and worked with that movie, or if he would have had the same exposition as the character. That I don't know. That seems to be that'd be up for debate. But for me, man, I didn't like that character. I felt it was kind of unnecessary. Another thing that I did not like is the cinematography behind it. I did not like that this movie looked like it could take place in a John Wick movie. Like this movie felt like it wasn't there was nothing stylized, nothing gritty, nothing raw. I understand that you want to make this for this generation, but you gotta make, just because John Wick looks nice and slick like a music video, doesn't mean The Crow needs to look like the same too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Granted, they're both Lionsgate's films, but you need to have The Crow look a certain way, like heighten the colors, make it much more exaggerated. Something, you know what I mean?
That's funny you said that. That was when I first saw the trailer, that was one of the main things I said. I was like, are y'all going for like a John Wick type of thing? Even down to having, I hate, like in the trailer, I was snapping because I'm like, why is Danny Houston doing the cliche villain shit? Even it's something out of John Wick where Danny Houston was just in the trailer. I don't even remember if this was in the movie. He was at the opera, it was empty, and he's just sitting there just taking in the singer that's on stage. I'm like, we've seen that shit done before. And I already didn't like him as like cast as the villain. What was his name? Vincent Rogue. But he was a trash villain in the movie. But as far as a John Wick reference, I'm glad they didn't go super, well choreographed fight sequences, gunplay, swordplay,
Yeah.
John Wick, John Woo type of shit. I'm glad they did not do that because that fucking sequence in the car, Eric is just making this shit up as he goes. He's not a swordsman. He's not a marksman. He's just doing this shit as he goes along. So that opera house sequence, that's the best sequence in the movie for me. They went crazy with that shit. And I'm glad that he wasn't doing kung fu. He's getting his ass kicked in that fucking scene. Like, he's getting lit up. And I think this Crow got way more damage than maybe any Crow we've seen in the franchise, for real. I mean, if you count, well, Brandon Lee got fucked up pretty bad in the first one, because when he's at that top dollar meeting, they light his ass up. He gets hit up like real good before he even gets the party started. But Skarsgård was getting trashed in that opera house scene, but that shit was brutal, man. That is the best scene in the whole movie for me. And I'm thinking that sequence was going to be like, I love that sequence, but you just went downhill after that, because when he goes to see the chick, what's her name? Marion. Cuts her and the dude's head off. And we were right, because we both said the same thing in our trailer reactions, where it looked like he threw heads into the crowd. But he threw their heads into the crowd. I'm like, all right, bet. Like, him and Danny Houston have to go toe-to-toe. And it's just dialogue. It's just dialogue. It's some supernatural shit. I said that their showdown was weak. I did not like that showdown. Yeah. When they went back to Purgatory, they went supernatural with killing Danny Houston. I'm thinking he was really going to fuck his shit up because he was behind the murder. Like, but all he did was, he pushed him into the little crystal lake, and the hands of Doom, like, clawed him up. And I'm like, that was a weak climax.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the things they tried to do to set it up. But I just, like, I don't know, man. I think they could have did a lot better with just the emotional, like, even I hate giving Wicked Prayer any type of credit, man. But like I said, even Wicked Prayer, you feel bad for Edward Furlong and his girlfriend when they get fucking killed. Like, they get hung and get their fucking hearts and their eyes cut. Well, his girlfriend gets his eyes cut out in her heart. But you feel bad for them.
Right.
I didn't. You never saw Wicked Prayer?
Never saw Wicked Prayer.
Yo,
I just found out today that Edward Furlong played a Mexican, so I'm just like, what the fuck? Didn't you think
his name's Jimmy Cuervo? Jimmy Cuervo, Danny Trejo's in it, Dennis Hopper's in it, Macy Gray is in it. Emmanuel Tricri plays his girlfriend, but David Boreanaz and Tara Reid lead this satanic cult. So they hang him inside of this store. I think the girlfriend works at the store. They hang him up. They cut her fucking eyes out in this ritualistic move, and they cut both of their hearts out and just throw them in refrigerators down the hill into the water. And that's just fucked up, man. Yeah, it's fucked up. But the movie's garbage, but you still feel bad for what happens to them. Even in kind of like in Salvation. I just watched Salvation the other night, and that movie's I gave it way too much credit. The new one's definitely better than Salvation and Wicked Prayer, but Salvation's kind of sad because the dude gets framed for murder of his girlfriend, and he knows he didn't do it. But the emotional stakes just weren't there in the new one. So I was disappointed as fuck with that. I was so disappointed with that.
And I also feel Danny Houston's character is like a character out of a fucking comic book. Granted,
Trash.
I know what I just said. Okay, I know what I just said, people. All right, calm down. I know The Crow is based off a fucking comic book. Calm down. That's not what I
It's gonna be
meant.
that.
Well,
It's gonna be that
yeah,
one person. It's gonna be that one person.
that
Like,
one
what did
dude.
he just said it.
What I mean is that this motherfucker came out like a Marvel DC comic book because I honestly feel, and I still feel this way, that this was like a movie made for Constantine. Like this was an unrealized sequel to Constantine because there's a lot of ideas here that they took, I feel like, from Constantine. The whole thing about heaven and earth, and I just feel like these people did not understand what drives this character because it's grief, it's justice, it's love. That's what drives his character and its motivation. It's about dealing with all these things. And yet this movie comes off as a comic book, and Danny Houston just comes off as someone that's supernatural, and he's kind of like the devil. Like what the fuck? Like this is a bad guy from Constantine. You can't tell me otherwise. Like I feel like this motherfucker, you could have pulled him out of the Constantine TV show as a villain of the week.
I want Danny Houston to stop being typecast. I want him to allow himself to stop being typecast as a villain. Because now you're just wearing thin. Like, it was cool. 30 Days a Night is great. He's amazing in that movie. He's scary as shit in that movie. Then he's the bad, like I think before that he was in the Number 23, and you kind of could tell he's shady off the jump. And then he was in Wonder Woman. And then before that, way before I think Number 23, he was in, might have been after Number 23, the X-Men Origins. He plays Stryker. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
you are, like, bruh. Yeah, the villains were definitely a bad spot of this movie overall because everybody was disposable. Nobody was recognizable. They didn't have any memorable lines. They didn't even have, like, the first two Crow movies, they got villains that, oh, that's the villain that did this. Oh, that's the villain that said that. Oh, that's the villain that looks like this. Like, you can identify those villains when you see them. And then you get to Salvation and they're just badly written, crooked cops and shit. And then you get to Wicked Prayer and they're just dickheads. Like, they just look like they just went to, like, the Masquerade store and they just fucking robbed it or some shit like that. Tara Reid's got, like, the little masquerade thing over her eyes just playing around in everybody's face. It's like, sit the fuck down. Like, y'all ain't that. I hate that fucking movie. Wait, you think this movie's bad? I want you to see Wicked Prayer. And then I want you to apologize to this new movie. I'm telling you.
No, that's not gonna happen. That ain't gonna happen. Even if I watch Wicked Prayer, bro, I'll be like, you know what? At least Edward Furlong, man. You know, at least, like, so no, man. I'm not gonna bother with this movie.
So overall, what did you give it? Like, did you give?
I gave it one. I gave it one.
God damn,
one.
bro.
I was gonna give it a half, but I was like, dude, I'm not gonna be a hater, even though I am, because like I gave it a one. I gave 1Z, but I felt like there were I felt like there were interesting ideas in this movie that were just not followed upon. And again, the core crux of this movie is the relationship. And if your relationship falls flat and it's not believable, why the fuck should I care what happens within the movie? Like, that is the whole crux of this fucking movie. That is the point of Eric Draven and vengeance and justice. That is the point. It's about, and it's also not even dealing with grief and love in a real way. Not to say that the original did it in a real way either, but there were silent moments of Brandon Lee's acting that you felt. There were moments with Vincent Perez in City of Angels that you felt bad for the guy. There are no moments in here where, like, I felt bad for Eric Draven. Like, I do not. I'm like, man, this is dull. Like, there's nothing here for me. Nothing. There's some interesting ideas. I felt like had that kid at the beginning, like, been his son, and his son had died because of Shelley, and Shelley had died, like, I felt like that would have been a much more interesting through line. Had the movie opened up with Shelley, I think that would actually probably been much better and more interesting, because the movie is about Shelley. It's not even about Eric at this point when you think about it. Even the first 5 minutes of the kid that's supposed to mean something, but it's never followed up on. The movie should have opened up with Shelley. Like, it should have, in my opinion, because it would have been a much more interesting story. But the relationship was still would have sucked though, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I gave it out of 10. I gave it a 7, and I gave it a fair 7 because there was a lot of shit in the movie that didn't work. But I think like with all the failed attempts and how long I've been waiting to see this shit, man. Like I've been on board for this shit. First of all, been through the gauntlet. City of Angels, I've always appreciated, but seeing it recently, I fucking love City of Angels even more. Salvation's trash. It's okay cast, but it's garbage. Then having to get through Wicked Prayer. I remember trying to do commentary for Wicked Prayer. The liquor didn't even help. I'm like, I can't. I just turned that shit off at some point. I'm like, I can't even. I'm telling you, bro. I set myself up to do an intoxic commentary. I think I had and it wasn't even no hard liquor. I had like a 4-pack and like a tall can. That's usually what I get when I do my intoxic commentaries. But I just checked out at some point. Like I was sitting up in this chair. I had the lever like set so I couldn't lean too far back. And then I just remember hearing myself snore and just getting up. And I'm like, yeah, I can't do it. I can't do this shit no more. And then going, like, the TV show back in the day, then Luke Evans was supposed to be the Crow. Bradley Cooper was supposed to be the Crow. Jason Momoa, I was excited for. So to finally get it, I was like, all right, I can't complain too much. I'm not going to give it, like, I'm not going to spare it. I'm going to be, like, completely honest about it. But, I don't hate this movie the way everybody hates it. I feel like there's some people who just don't even know, like how we're giving our reasons as to why we don't like it or things that could have worked and should have, could have, would have. There's people that just don't even know.
Yeah.
Like I'm all in the comments when it comes to this movie, bro. And there's people that just, well, I hate this, man. The original will always reign supreme. And it's like, okay, Alex Proyas, what the fuck? Why don't you like it?
Oh my
and
God.
Speaking of Alex, this is why I didn't want to upload my episode this morning that I did yesterday. Because I was sipping my beers a little bit and I was in my raw, unfiltered feelings when I did my review, and I was like, this is too much of a rant, so let me just do it over. But then I said, no, fuck that. I said what I said, and I'm gonna stand on this review. One of the things I said, Alex Proyas and David J. Scow, the guy that wrote I think he wrote the original script or something. They're starting to post things where they making fun of the fact that the movie flopped and all of this shit. And I'm like, did y'all do that when City of Angels came out, or Salvation went straight to DVD, or a Wicked Prayer went straight to DVD? Did y'all do that to mark the Costco's when the TV show got canceled after one season? That's some hating ass shit to do. Like they say, imitation is the highest form of flattery, or however else you say it. I understand Alex Proyas is like, yo, I made this movie for Brandon Lee. I love Brandon Lee, and I made this movie to honor his legacy and so on and so forth. That's cool. But I don't see, like, John Carpenter did say something about Rob Zombie. He called Rob Zombie a little shit or something like that. But
years later, after the fact, which I have a problem with, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about after we're done here. We'll talk about after we're done here.
Yeah, because I don't like that shit either. Like you waited. It's like he woke up a couple years later at like 2 a.m. He's like, wait a minute. Like I don't even like what I said. Like fuck. Oh yeah, man, I don't like. But Alex Proyas, that's really tacky for him to do that shit and make fun of the fact that this remake that still tried to pay homage to your original. They already knew they couldn't fuck with the original movie. No, nothing's gonna equate to that original movie. But to make fun of this shit because it bombed and on social media at that, like that's some hating shit. It's tacky as fuck. And I feel like Alex Proyas, he's just adding fuel to the fire. Like it's the lynch mob that already is outside of Rupert Sanders' door with pitchforks and shit, and they got Alex Proyas t-shirts on even more now. He's just putting wood to the fire. I hate that he did that, yo. I really hate that. He could have gave him some fucking words of encouragement or something, because they're still in the midst of even the failed ideas for the new one. Rupert Sanders is still kissing your ass in this movie. He basically recreated the sequence where Eric kills all the top dollars people. That's all the Opera House sequence is, but just with better effects and more blood and shit, more violence.
Oh,
like he's
dude,
still.
I gotta send you that extended cut of the Devil's Night shootout, bro. You gotta watch that. There's an extended.
I need that.
Yeah, I'll send it to you after we're done, because once
I
you
didn't
see
even
that,
know they had an extended cut.
Once you see that extended cut, bro, it's like, holy shit. What?
Yeah, I need that.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
For sure.
send it to you. But yeah, I mean that's our thoughts on the Crow. That's our thoughts on the Crow 2024. Yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I'm not. I
never would have guessed.
Yeah, right.
God damn, he said I gave this shit a 1. All right. So which was better, The Crow 2024 or Jeepers Creepers Reborn? If somebody had a gun to your head and was like, "Yo, you better watch this movie all the way through,"
bro, just pull the trigger.
It's like, oh, all right, just do it.
Just do it.
Just fucking do it.
Dude, I don't want to sit through this bullshit again. No fucking way.
Damn, bro.